Hi and welcome. Today I'd like to talk to you about a concept that I've stumbled on. Some of you may have heard about it, some of you haven't, I'm sure. You've heard about gaslighting and you've heard about ghosting. Well, this one is called breadcrumbing. And it actually is a thing because I realized after learning about it that I have and probably still am experiencing it in my own life. So let me explain a little bit. You know about gaslighting, you know about ghosting, and a lot of these, including breadcrumbing, come from online dating, or they breathed life into them with online dating, especially ghosting and gaslighting. But breadcrumbing is very interesting because what happens is, well, I guess the old term for it would be to be strung along. But I actually like breadcrumbing because I love the visual of it. I can see this so visually. Someone dropping crumbs and the bird having a crumb and feeling good and then getting hungry and needing more. But let me explain. So, online dating, breadcrumbing looks like you might be talking to somebody, or I should say, messaging somebody, not talking to them, and suddenly it dries up. But then they drop your breadcrumb, maybe 5 days later, 2 weeks later, just when you thought, well, that's it, never going to hear from them again. They want to keep you on board, they want to keep you interested. And this isn't a given, but it's a possibility that they're talking to more than just you, other people as well. So they might be dropping a lot of breadcrumbs around with lots of different people. So why does this matter? Because it's just another one of those internet dating things that happen. Well, it matters because it can be very painful and very hurtful. And it can also work from another perspective, or happen, I should say, from another perspective, with a friend that you already have in your life, or perhaps a partner. Have you ever had somebody in your life where it just feels like they're pulling back, they're pulling away from you, and you don't understand why? Because that's what happened to me recently. And it's always easier if I use myself as an example so as not to out anybody else. But I have a long-term friend, and years, decades. And I noticed recently that they were just becoming more and more quiet. The text messages dried up, the invitations to go out dried up. And I began to think, like so many of us do, I think women do this a lot more than men perhaps, but I'm a woman, I can only speak for myself, is we go inside and say, what did I do? What did I say? Is it my fault? And we go through this sort of loop of judgment and blame of self. And we do, the hindsight 2020 thing, which is always going to be harsh in my experience. We're rarely kind to ourselves when we're going back to the past. I should have, could have, would have done that. And we come away actually feeling quite bad about it. Well, that was certainly my experience. I felt really bad. I felt really hurt. And I felt like, what did I do? What did I say that has pushed this person away from me? Because I didn't stop to think that maybe their behavior was a reflection of what is going on inside of them and has very little or nothing to do with me. I eventually got there, but that took a while. And that's why I'm doing this video, because I just want to give you some context of what it looks like, what could happen, and how you can navigate this so that you're not feeling hurt or abandoned or rejected for a long period of time. So I went on this journey of exploration. I was asking friends, what did they think? Friends that knew both of us, what did they think was going on? And they were quite stunned by it. They had no idea. They said that nothing was ever said to them. They had no idea why this person was acting in the way that they were acting, which confused me even more because I thought, well, if there was a reason, that would be easier for me to understand. So this is what I concluded. I concluded that people change, as we know, and there's a wonderful poem that I share a lot with my clients called A Reason, a Season, a Lifetime, and it's about friendship. Some people come into our lives for a reason. Maybe we've been thrown together in a job, or a project, or we're on a trip and, there's a small group of people and we spend a lot of time with this small group of people and we become friends with them after. And that might last for a very short period of time, maybe even a week or a month or a year. And that they came in for a reason. Maybe they needed to give us a message or show us something, because I believe that everybody comes into our life for two reasons. They're either a mirror where we look at ourselves by looking at them, they hold a mirror up to us, or they're a messenger and they have a message for us. And sometimes it's not an obvious message and we don't realize what the message is until they're gone. And then there are friends that come into our lives for a season. Now, not necessarily literally a season, but it could be a season. It could be 3 months of our lives, or it could be 3 years of our lives. And they also have a purpose, a very important purpose. They have something to teach us or to show us. And we, again, may learn that or see that on that journey with them, or we may not see it until after they have exited our lives. And then there's the friends that are a lifetime. And those are the friends that when you die, they're still your friend. That's the best way I can put it. And they would help you do anything, absolutely anything. They're always there for you. There may be gaps of time where you don't see them. There even can be years. Maybe you've moved to a different country, or you've moved out of the state or whatever, and you can pick up. Those friends that you just, when you get in touch with them, you pick up where you left off. There's a comfort to that. You just kind of sink in. It's sort of like when you come home and take your shoes and clothes off and get your comfy clothes. It's that kind of friend. Those are lifetime friends. So this really helped me, because I thought, I tell my clients about this, but heal thyself. Maybe this is what's going on in your life with this person. And maybe the friendship has just expired. Maybe the season has ended for us. And of course, like most people, you want closure. I certainly do, and I certainly did. And I wanted them to be able to say to me, my life has changed, my feelings toward you have changed, I want to move on, things like that. But I didn't get that. And I sat with those feelings and realized that that was something that was activated in me from my childhood. Something to do with not being seen or heard or validated, or maybe all three of those. So I was holding on to a past wound. And the metaphor I use is, I don't like guns, but using a gun, this is the gun, this is the trigger. And if there's no ammunition in the gun, when we come into relationship with somebody metaphorically, then if something is said that might hurt or anger somebody else, it doesn't with us, because we don't have that wound in that gun. But if somebody comes into our life and does something like, in that moment I felt rejected and abandoned, and if I have that emotion, that wound in me already from the past, which I do, that when that trigger is pulled, there is an explosion. There is an overwhelming feeling, overwhelming emotions. There's sadness and anger and frustration and rejection. And what I realized is that wound had very little to do with that person and their actions toward me. They're still painful, absolutely. I miss the person. I've had to accept, which is the next step of healing. The awareness is the first. So I became aware of my gun being loaded and the emotions that were attached to that wounding. And then I went into the acceptance phase of it, which is probably the hardest phase of healing, in my opinion, because it can be lonely. There's grief, there's sadness, and the person that you might want to talk to about those emotions might be exactly the person who is exiting your life. And then you move on to the conscious stage, which is where I am now. And I'm much more consciously aware of what is going on. And every now and then, I got one this morning, I got a breadcrumb from this friend, and I took a pause. I took a pause and realized that it wasn't really about them. It was actually about me and my feelings of abandonment. Now, this does not excuse their behavior. This does not excuse that they weren't able to look me in the eye or send me a message and say, I feel that it's over and I'm going to move on in a different direction, which I've done with people, and I think that is the pretty honest thing to say. But getting back to the consciousness, I became consciously aware in that moment, and I didn't allow myself to dwell in the past. So I stayed present because I had realized where it was coming from, and I wanted to stay present with it. And when you're present, when you're conscious, then you have a choice. And it's all about choice. Now, you may choose to do the same thing with that person that you've always done, or you may make a different choice. And the choice that I made was to create a boundary, because I don't want to continue to feel activated when I get one of these breadcrumb messages. The next one might come, well, this took about 2 weeks, so who knows when the next one will come. And I took a pause, and I didn't react. I didn't respond immediately to it. I took some time to go to my inner child, my younger self, and see how she was doing and calm her down, create safety for her, that she felt safe in that moment before I decided what to do. And my boundary, your boundary may be different. My boundary is to not engage very much. My boundary is to let some time pass, not playing a game. It's just that I need some time to process. And I sometimes need time to think about how I want to respond. And my response with this person is getting much more honest. I will say things like, thank you for the invitation. It's a last minute invitation. It might be for tomorrow, which is out of character, but I'll say thank you for the invitation. However, I'm not available, and going forward, more notice would be helpful, and maybe I could then move things around. So I'm creating some boundaries that I didn't have before with this friend. It was just very open-ended. I was always available to them if I possibly could be. I would move things to be with them. And I'm realizing that that just isn't the way forward. So I want you to think about some people in your life that might be breadcrumbing you. And it's not a bad thing. It's just that I want you to take care of yourself in that. When you have the awareness that perhaps you are being breadcrumbed by somebody, have some awareness, connect to your younger self, see what is going on inside, because it probably is an old wound and your gun was loaded when you got those messages or didn't get those messages, and it took you to that dark place, that dark side of self. And that's when you can sit with that part of you and say, I see you, I hear you, I accept you. What do you need in this moment? And you can then provide that for that part of you, that younger self that feels wounded by someone else's actions. And then you will begin to be able to process things more quickly, because in the old days, in the bad old days, this would have taken me a long time to get over, but it hasn't now, because I have the tools of awareness, acceptance, consciousness, and choice, which I see to be the 4 pillars of healing. So take some time after this video, not to analyze things, not to get angry with people, but just to think about some people in your life, and maybe the relationship with them has changed. Create some awareness about it, and then some acceptance. Go into the conscious space, stay in the present, and then make good choices, because we can't make good choices from bad places. So always get yourself into a good state before you make that choice. Thank you very much for coming on this journey with me today. Stay safe.